For today's video, we are going to be making this beautiful sunflower fall birthday card. So sit back and enjoy the video. Okay, let's get started with today's card. So the very first thing I did was I wanted to figure out what combination of different colors went together. So I cut out the back and the outline from a whole bunch of different colors. I used some of the new cinnamon cider. This is Cajun Craze. This is the Bumblebee, pumpkin pie, and mango melody. And I just kind of played around and put different colors together to see which ones I liked. And I ended up with a handful of different combinations. I will show them here on screen, and let me know in the comments below which one you happen to like the best. My favorites ended up being the pumpkin pie with the mango melody base. I really like that one. Now, there's lots of little edges on these flowers, and you have to wonder how in the world you get them to line up. Well, the best way that I found to do it is to look for this notch where the direction of the petals changes. And it's the most distinct of the notches all around. And once you find that, it's really easy to get these to line up. I also wanted to make sure that I used a early espresso center for the flowers, and I think it looks better if the center is actually underneath rather than on top. On top it just didn't look right, plus you lose all the detail of these pretty little dots that are cut into the paper. So that was how I came up with my flower design. Some of these other ones, I love dark orange sunflowers in real life, and so I was trying to play around with something that would look like what you might find at the florist shop. And so I just tried all these different colors. Now, it kind of made a difference though, when it got down to it, when I tried to decide what paper to use. And I went through this beautiful Gilded Autumn product suite and took a couple of the flowers and compared them to the different color combinations on the paper. And the ones that were the yellow and pumpkin based, mango and pumpkin, sounds like a tropical smoothie, they kind of didn't go with the paper. However, when I pulled them away and took a look at the cinnamon cider and Cajun Craze, that really went really nice with this paper. I wanted something that would not compete with the background. And some of the papers in here are pretty busy. Obviously, you don't want too much tone on tone. This could be kind of fun, but that's a pretty busy background and you really lose how pretty the flower is. And it was when I set the flower down on, I thought this was pretty too, and that's definitely a contender. I really liked that one. But when I set it down on this side, I realized that this had the right combination that I was looking for. So this became the back for my card. I also wanted to have enough contrast. So I am going to be putting this onto a top fold early espresso card base. And I think that just gives it a nice little, it sets it off and then it brings the middle of the flower in a little bit better. And I'm going to have just a 1/16 inch reveal all around. So I cut this paper to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Now don't worry about those measurements. All the measurements and product list for the supplies used in today's card will be down in the show notes below. This is a top folding early espresso piece of paper cut to 4 1/4 by 11, scored and folded at 5 1/2. The first thing I want to do, because I am going to be using some glue, is I'm going to glue these all together, and that way they have a chance to dry while I'm working on the rest of the card. There's a couple ways that you can deal with the very fine edges on this overlay. And the way that I decided to do it, I could have put this onto a piece of double-sided adhesive sheet, but given the fact that I cut how many of these out, I didn't really want to go through all sorts of sheets not knowing which piece that I was going to end up with. So instead, I have this envelope from one of the die sets that I've purchased recently. If you've seen all of my unboxing videos, it'll be up in this corner. You know that I've enjoyed a lot of the products from the holiday catalog, and so I have lots of packaging sitting around. That's why I don't throw away the packaging. I usually combine the die sets into the stamp sets and then have all these packages left over, but they make great card envelopes that you can use to send to people, and they come in handy later on. So I'm just taking my sponge and dabbing the glue onto the back of the flower here. I'm also going to make sure that I don't move the flower around too much because I don't want to get glue on the front of it if I can help it. There is certainly enough room in the middle here to put a little bead of glue. I'm also going to put some right along the edges so that I can adhere down my flower center, and I'm going to do that from this side before I pick it up and stick it onto the card, or onto the base. And that way I know it's going to be in the right spot. Now again, we're going to take a look for this notch and find the same notch on the flower. By using glue rather than an adhesive sheet, it also gives me a bit of wiggle room, especially with something this detailed, to line it up and make sure that all of the edges are aligned. And an adhesive sheet, if you were to use that, it seems like it's much easier. However, when it comes to trying to get this all to fit, the adhesive sheet will stick as soon as you touch the pieces together, and that would be a bad thing. There we go. There's our flower. Now the next thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to put some leaves behind the flower. And the first thing that I started off with were leaves that were in a coordinating color. This is just jade. And I cut them out. These are using the dies that are in this set. I kind of didn't like them. They weren't quite what I was looking for. So I then turned to a different die set. I used the Prized Peony leaves, and I really like them. They have a highlight or a low light as well as the leaf, and I thought that the shape of the leaves was also very appropriate for a sunflower, and so I'm using the dies for the leaves out of Prized Peony. When I took a look at the actual Just Jade paper, the color didn't quite, it wasn't a two-tone color, and since I wanted two-tone leaves, I decided that I was going to use some of my Stampin' Blends markers to create my own custom two-tone paper. So I lined up where I was going to put the leaves when I cut them out, and make sure you don't have them cut edge up, because that obviously is very easy to see where the cut edges are. However, when you put them down, then the cut edges are going the wrong way, especially when it comes to these little pieces that are very directional. So I kind of outlined them so that I knew where I wanted my color to go. And I took a piece of, this is what the dies come on. I like to store mine on magnetic sheets, but I keep on these pieces that had the adhesive on it and hang on to those, because then I do use them for scrap later on for stuff like coloring, so that the markers don't bleed through onto the paper. Now I am using the Just Jade in the light shade, and that's going to be for the base of the leaf. And I'm just going to color a light coating of ink. And quite honestly, it doesn't really matter if it looks kind of, if there's lines and streaks in it, because you know, leaves are that way. I'm going to take the dark Just Jade and I'm going to color in where I'm going to cut out the pieces that are going to be the low lights, or the shadows on the leaves. And this I'm going to put down a couple, go back and forth a couple times, put down a lot of ink because I want that to be a little bit darker. And that way there's contrast where it stands out. So I'm going to let that dry for a second, and I'm going to align my dies and then run this through my die cutting machine. Now, very exciting news, Stampin' Up! Has designed a new die cutting machine, and after much anticipation, it's finally going to be coming out at the beginning of September for customers. So if you don't already have a die cutting machine, stay tuned for that announcement and that availability. Here are my pieces. As I mentioned earlier, all of the information for the products that I used in today's project can be found in the link down below in the show notes. And it will take you to a page on my website where I actually have an instruction sheet and product supply list right there. Ideally, I would be doing this on a silicone mat, but my silicone mat seems to have disappeared up into my craft room, and I have no idea where it went. But boy, a silicone mat sure would make this much easier. I just love the look that the alcohol markers give to this. There's a little highlight, a little low light. If I wanted, I could even draw in some veining at this point. I think that's better than trying to use different colors of paper. If you're interested in recreating this project for yourself, I sure would appreciate it if you would buy your products from me. The link to my online store will be down in the show notes below. I am a small business, and it sure helps defray the cost of making these videos and all the products that you need to put these cards together. So the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to stamp the inside of the envelope. And for that, I have a piece of Very Vanilla. This is cut to 4 by 5 1/4. And I'm going to use some Cajun Craze ink. I'm gonna set those aside to dry for a minute. This is a birthday card for the girl that works for me. And so I wanted to have a very special birthday greeting. Now, there's quite a few different stamp sets that have birthday wishes on them. And on the new website, you can actually go into Stamps as a Product, and then you can sort and filter out all of the stamp sets that contain birthday wishes. The one that had the wish that I like the best is this Best Year stamp set. And if you've watched a couple of my videos, you know that I did use it on my Father's Day card. I'll put a link to that up in the corner here. And this is just an awesome stamp set because it's so versatile. We have a Christmas wish, Father's Day wish, thank you, birthday, just a hello, so, and a congrats. What a great stamp set, very versatile. And I really liked the style of the print for the birthday wishes. So I'm going to use the happy birthday to you and wishing you your best year yet. That's gonna go on the inside of the card and the happy birthday on the outside. I love the look of Cajun Craze on Very Vanilla. I just think that's such a pretty combination, especially as we go into fall. Now here for the happy birthday to you, I am just going to put this in the middle of a piece of Very Vanilla, and that way when I cut it out with the die, I can still use the Very Vanilla as a card base, and with paper on top of it, no one will ever know that we cut out the happy birthday. If you've watched some of my other videos, you know that I love this die set. This is the Stitched So Sweetly die set. It is part of the annual catalog, and it has these beautiful little scalloped edge rectangles and then this beautiful label. I made a label with this for one of the other cards from the Gilded Autumn suite, and it's nice because it has the these two dies here are sized to give a little bit, about 1/8 of an inch reveal all around. And these are awesome because it just puts the little stitching and it has the scalloped edge. So I am going to use this die on my birthday sentiment, and I'm going to go and run this through my die cutting machine, and I will be right back. Okay, there's our greeting, and it goes so nicely with the inside of the card. I can adhere the inside of the card down. If you notice, as I'm picking up this tape, I'm actually rolling it this way and lifting it straight off. I learned that from some other Stampin' Up demonstrator here on YouTube. I think it was Cindy Brumbaugh, and that is a game changer. This new tape roller can sometimes be a little particular about how the tape comes off, but when you pick it up and cut the edge like that, it really makes a big difference in how it comes off. Now, before we adhere our paper down, I am going to add some ribbon next to where my greeting is going to go. To do that, I took a look at a couple of different potential candidates for ribbon. I really like this new ribbon, and this came out of the Gilded Autumn suite, and it's a beautiful copper ribbon, but I was afraid that the copper was going to compete too much with the gold foil in the paper. So I'm going to use some of this new Cinnamon Cider ribbon. This is, I think, a 1/4 inch wide, and I am going to wrap it around, lay this out first and figure out where my flower is going to go and then where my ribbon is going to go. And wrap it around, and then I'm going to adhere a pre-tied bow onto it. So we can say about 1 inch from the bottom, and add some tape to the back. Now I can adhere this down onto my card base. Now this is, remember, a 1/16 of an inch reveal all around. All right, our card's coming together. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use some Stampin' Dimensionals and raise my sentiment up. And I'm going to use some mini dimensionals because I want the sentiment to straddle on either side of the ribbon and have the ribbon running through. So these little mini dimensionals are awesome because it allows you to put them exactly where you need them. And because they are mini, I'm going to actually use one in the middle as well. Provide a little extra support in the middle of the sentiment strip. Now that gives me a nice channel to kind of position my sentiment where it needs to go and not have to worry about dimensionals getting in the way. Now off camera, I used the ribbon to create this little bow, and to do that, I actually took a loop like this, a loop like that, just tied them. And that creates the nicest, easiest bows without having to fight with them. See, just like that. I am going to adhere this with a 1/8 inch glue dot because that's a fairly small center on that bow. Now for our sunflower, I am actually going to raise that one up, and I want my sunflower right here. We're going to put the leaves down, and we're going to adhere those down with some tape. We're going to put the flower on with some glue dots or some dimensionals as well. So I wanted to have one leaf coming down this way. And the other leaf is going to be over here on this side. Big flower, big dimensionals. I think it looks a little bit more upright if we have all of the smaller petals facing this way, like the flower is tilting its head towards the sun. So I'm going to put these larger petals down here at the bottom. There we go. We have our beautiful fall birthday card. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did and can give it a big thumbs up, I'd sure appreciate it. If you can, subscribe to my channel and hit the bell and you'll be notified when I post new videos. Have a fantastic day. Thanks, crafty friends.